We're back here at WHIP, Philly's #1 college radio station. When you think of Boston sports for the last 10 or 15 years, some names come to mind: Tom Brady, Teddy Bruschi, Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Tim Thomas with the Bruins Stanley Cup run that they went on. And when you look at the Boston Red Sox, you also think of Manny Ramirez, David Ortiz, and even Pedro Martinez. But when you think of Boston sports talk radio, one name comes to mind, and that's the Big O in Glenn Ordway, who dominated WEEI for a plethora of years. And with Boston one game away from winning the World Series, we'll ship up to Boston right now and welcome in the former WEEI host, and that's Glenn Ordway. Glenn, it's Zach Gelb here in Philadelphia. How are you?
Zach, great to talk to you. I don't think I'm in the category of any of those other guys, and I can tell you I do not have the bankroll of a single one of them.
Well, do you at all miss doing the show? Because I would always, whenever I would come up from New York or even Philadelphia growing up as a kid, I would always listen to 850 WEEI. So do you miss hosting the show?
Of course I do. There's no question about it. I've been doing some national stuff, and that's been an awful lot of fun. But there's nothing like doing, local, big market sports talk radio with the emotion, the passion, and especially when you've got a great run like you've got with this team right now. There's nothing like it.
Glenn, I always remember as a kid growing up going to Foxborough as I would make the trip up from New York with my uncle, and we would always stop by your tailgates, and they had some delicious food, and you always brought in the big celebrities. So how are the tailgates going outside of Foxborough?
Been great. It's been great. We have a lot of fun at the tailgates, and we get a lot of big-time celebrities and athletes, so that's been fun.
Before we get to the Red Sox, as that's the big story, as they're one game away from winning the World Series, let's just spend a quick minute on the Patriots. They sit at 6-2. They're just coming off a victory this past weekend, a game that they went down 17-3. They sit there at 6-2, and there have been some big injury problems, whether it's been Vince Wilfork, Gerard Mayo, or Sebastian Vollmer being out for the year. But still, they're in the playoff hunt. They look like they're going to win the AFC East. Is there a sense of panic in Boston about the Patriots? Because they don't look like their dominant selves of many years ago.
No, I wouldn't say it's panic. Zach, I would say it's more everybody's puzzled by it. I mean, they're 6-2. There's no denying the record. What a fairly difficult schedule, or at least the teams that you thought were going to be difficult on the schedule that haven't been quite as tough as you anticipated before the season began. But the receiving core has been very inconsistent. Haven't been on the same page with Tom Brady. Brady has struggled. You look at Brady's numbers right now. It's just, you've never seen this before, where you're matching up the quarterback list, and in any category you're seeing Brady 22nd, 24th, 29th in an individual quarterback category. They've had tons of injuries. They lost a player because he's accused of murder right now. Defensively, they've lost a key guy, the best guy at each level. They lost, Vince Wilfork, then they lost Gerard Mayo, then they lost Aqib Talib. Looks like Talib's going to come back in the next week or two. So I'm stunned that they're 6-2. They don't look like a real good football team, but they're 6-2. I think they're going to get healthier, and I think the younger players, especially the receiving core, are going to get better as the season progresses on. So they could be interesting before it's all said and done.
Glenn Ordway joins us, former longtime WEI host. And Glenn, now let's get to these Boston Red Sox. They are one win away from winning a World Series. They haven't won a World Series at home since 1918. And the big story in Boston has been the play of David Ortiz, has a 700-plus batting average. Have you ever, in the history of your career covering Boston sports or even national sports, ever seen a player go on this dominant of a run?
No, I've never seen anything like it. He's batting almost 800, and had Carlos Beltran not made that phenomenal catch, robbing him of a home run back at the beginning of the series, these numbers would be even more outrageous. He is locked in. You can't get him out, and the only question I have is, Mike Bethany, why are you even pitching to him? I mean, I would never pitch to him. I would never put anything in the strike zone. I would pitch all around him, and if he takes first base, that's probably an achievement as opposed to hitting second or hitting it out of the park and driving in a few runs. I'd never pitch to him right now.
When you look at this Boston group this year, they're a resilient group going back to the whole Boston Strong campaign, and that was a tragedy of what happened on the Boston Marathon, which is usually a great day in Boston, and the team rallied around this sports team specifically with the whole Big Papi, this is our bleeping city quote that he gave them, and it's a wacky group too, this Red Sox team with the beard stuff, and it kind of reminds you a little bit of that 2004 team, as Millar called them the idiots. Do you guys see any similarities between that 04 team and this current group right now?
Yeah, I would say the personality that you referred to with the idiots in 2004, but it's interesting that 04 team was a team that everybody projected, especially coming so close in 2003, and the added players that they put on the roster for 2004. I think most people expected them to possibly be in the World Series. This team has come from nowhere. Trust me, 69-win team a year ago. I don't think there was anybody, including anybody in Boston front office, that felt that this team would be on the edge of doing what they could possibly do here tonight with Game 6. Nobody. So anybody that tells you that right now is totally lying to you. So this one's a little bit different in that one was loaded with talent. This one obviously has found talent. Different guys have contributed at different times during the course of the season, and they have really found some pitching. I mean, John Lackey, coming back from Tommy John surgery 2 years ago, he was just awful. And right now, he's had a phenomenal season, has been durable, and even the inning he gave him the other night. So, to me, the pitching has been superb. They're on their third or fourth closer. And Coach Uehara has turned out to be lights out. This is Mariano Rivera right now. He's that good.
And Uehara, you saw him the other night. Lester won a stellar game, and then all of a sudden they go to Uehara for a 4-out save, and he's been able to shorten those games. And when you do that in the postseason, you usually walk away with some victories, is what you saw last night.
Yeah, no question. And, he throws the ball 89, 90. But he's got a little tail on the end of that fastball, and he throws that cutter and moves a little bit more. And we watched him all season long, and he's been unhittable. And it's so unusual to have a guy that's a closer that's only throwing in the high 80s that nobody can touch, and he's relying on the fastball and the cut fastball. And that's what he's done, and you can't hit him.
Glenn Ordway joins us on the hotline right now. Philly's #1 college radio station, WHIP. Zach Gelb here with you. And Glenn, you see this team now, St. Louis, they're one loss away from being eliminated. The Red Sox are one win away from winning the World Series. Lackey and Wacha, you mentioned it. And you look at Wacha, he's been a rookie, but he's been outstanding so far in this postseason. Going back to Boston, especially how raucous of an atmosphere that is with the fans singing all the songs that they do. Victorino talked about how it's an incredible environment to play in. Could this be a big stage? Does that at all scare you when you put a rookie pitcher on the mound in a big World Series game like this?
Yeah, I would say normally, yeah. But Michael Wacha seems like he is very, very unique. If you look at his numbers on the second time around, second games that he has now faced the team, you would think there would be a drop-off. The teams would say, okay, he's throwing great stuff. We've never seen him before, and it's very deceiving. Second time around, mostly teams get the guys like that. They're not getting to him the second time around. Now, I can't determine whether he is going to be in any way fazed by the crowd. And a lot of that will probably be determined whether the Cardinals can pick up the early runs off of John Lackey. You do that, and you always kind of quiet that crowd down a little bit. If the Red Sox get a couple runs early in that game and they get the lead, then the question is, how does Michael Wacha, this young guy who's, only really been a starter in the big league since the middle of September, how does he react to all of it? And that's the great unknown.
When you're looking at Lackey, who Wacha's going to go up against, you mentioned it, he was probably a year ago probably going to be remembered as the fried chicken and beer guy in that locker room, and he comes back from that surgery as well, and he's turned it around. What do you think has changed with John Lackey from 2-3 years ago when he first came to Boston up until now? Because he even came in that big game the other day and came out of the bullpen and was outstanding.
Well, he's dropped about 20 pounds, maybe even more than that. Seems to be in much better shape. I've been here a long time, and I've never seen a crowd turn on a guy the way they turned on John Lackey. He almost became the poster boy for everything that was wrong in September of 2011. And the dismantling of this team, even though he didn't play last year, people were constantly bitching and complaining about the fact that he was in the dugout. He was in the dugout not only at home games but on the road. Fans did not like this guy. He became everything that was wrong with the team and the chicken and the beer and everything else. And to see his turnaround, it is absolutely amazing to me. A phenomenal competitor. I don't think anybody would have said that 2 years ago about him, though you ask his teammates, and his teammates have always felt that about him. But it never was portrayed by the media, by the fans. I don't think he ever connected with them. And he's connecting right now because he's been great. It's a total 180 with John Lackey. I've never seen anything like it before. I think even the fans are starting to like this guy. It's been a very long process to get the fan approval back, but I think he's starting to do it. And if he wins here in Game 6 and pitches great, it'll be the greatest 180 I've ever seen with a player winning over the public of his hometown team.
He last pitched in Game 4, came out of the bullpen, didn't do that until 2004 coming out of the pen.
Right.
Does that worry you at all a little bit now he comes from going out of the bullpen, now getting back into the starting rotation?
Not really, because he would have done that anyway. That's the day that, 2 days before that, 3 days actually, that's the day that you go out and you do your bullpen session. So instead of doing the bullpen session and throwing the ball hard with 3 batters or 3 simulated batters in the bullpen, they simply had him do it in the game. I actually thought it was a smart move. Why not? Especially when right now you can't depend on Craig Breslow. So you're down one guy there. I don't think they felt great about either one of their lefties in Franklin Morales as well. So why not? And, you can look at it now and say, man, it worked. They get nothing off him.
Glenn Ordway joins us on the hotline right now. A few more questions right before we let the Big O go. And Glenn, 2 names that pop out to me that I'm curious to see if they'll play in Game 6 has been Ross. He comes up with that big hit last night. I would imagine he gets the start over Salty. And then former Philadelphia Philly here in Shane Victorino. He's been out of the lineup the last few days. So Ross and Victorino, do you see them going in Game 6?
Victorino, if he's feeling better and the back is feeling better, probably will go. That's what I'm hearing. I'm not sure about Ross and Salty, and the reason I say that is Lackey seems to have a good connection with Saltalamacchia, and I think a big part of that, Zach, is that Lackey likes to call his own games. He likes to be in control of what he's throwing. Saltalamacchia is far more passive behind the plate in managing games, where Ross is far more active in getting involved with each individual batter and really managing games. And I think he does a really good job with it. I was surprised at the hit, I'll tell you that. I'm not surprised that he was able to manage the game. He and Lester really have a good connection. And I think Lester likes having a seasoned guy behind the plate who knows the hitters, who's going to sit there and manage the game for him. Lackey, on the other hand, likes to do it himself. So I would not be surprised at all to see Saltalamacchia back behind the plate.
It's kind of funny because this has been an exciting series. It's been great, but it's been a little bit bizarre with some of the way these games have ended, whether it was obstruction or the pickoff, or even last night you saw the bottom of the order come up big for the Boston Red Sox, and you even saw a fan throw a paper airplane out right in front of John Lester. But before, when they went from Boston back to St. Louis, the big storyline was, are they going to sit David Ortiz? And I would have been stunned if they would have done that. And they get Napoli back for the DH coming up for Game 6. What does that big bat of a Mike Napoli do to this lineup for the Red Sox?
Well, it either gives you a strikeout or it gives you a home run, because that's what Napoli does. Napoli either hits it out of the ballpark or he hits nothing. He touches no wood. That's the problem. When you talk about a series, it's been a fascinating and fun series because there have been so many things to talk about. But I don't think it's been well played, Zach. Matter of fact, that first game, the Cardinals totally took themselves out of the game with poor fielding. Red Sox did the same in Game 2. Then you had the stupid throwdown at third base and the obstruction, which I believe was the right call. I'm not sure it's a great rule, but it was the right call. And then, of course, you get the pickoff by Wong in the next game after that, and you're sitting there going, what is she doing? off the bag at first base. You need 2 runs to tie the game. So, yeah, it's been dramatic. It's been theatrical. There have been some moments, but this has been far from the best played World Series. And I think that unless you're emotionally involved in it, you're probably sitting there going, man, this is the bad news Bears series.
Glenn, final one here right before we let you run. I picked the Red Sox to win in 6 games going back before the series. I'm going to stick with that and say they get it done. However, let's say if this one does go to a Game 7, would it be Peavy getting the start? Do they pitch Lester on short rest? What do you see the Red Sox doing if this one goes to Game 7?
Well, anything goes when you get into a Game 7, Zach. So they'd start Peavy, but don't be surprised if Peavy doesn't have it, and they notice he doesn't have it. Right off the bat, they would go with a quick hook. I think Dubron would be the first guy out of the pen at that point. You also have Ryan Dempster out there, who's not pitched at all, but maybe an inning early on in this series. I think in the 8-2 game, in the first game, he pitched 1 inning, maybe the last inning. But all hands are available, all arms are available at that point. It wouldn't surprise me to see anybody out there at all. Even though, Lackey's going in Game 6, what's to say that he doesn't come back in Game 7? I think you pull out all the guns in Game 7, and I think Mike Matheny will do the exact same thing. He will start with Kelly, and then he'll go wherever he has to go. And who knows, maybe Wainwright is back in there as well.
Well, Big O, we appreciate a few minutes today. This was a whole lot of fun, so thanks so much for joining us.
All right, man. Good talking to you, Zach. Have a good one, man.